When you're making a year of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl music, you truly love Pokemon, do you?
I'm Mac Fraser,
I'm Backrolls.
and we're the Nintendo Nerds.
We're a new comedy and gaming duo here to help you craft and play your way to a better day.
We met in the not too distant past during some spirited online Mario Kart, and as it turns out, we share a love for art, gaming, and all things Nintendo.
And we want to share our nerdy knowledge with you.
So stick around because in today's episode of the Nintendo Builders Corner, we are joined by Carlos Eiene, known on YouTube as Insaneintherain.
Now, if you like jazz music and video games, and you are not already familiar with Carlos's work, boy, do I have some good news for you. Carlos has been producing some of the smoothest jazz covers of video games' greatest hits for the past 7 years on YouTube. He's been releasing a new cover almost every week in that time span, so if you do some quick math, that means you have hundreds upon hundreds of songs to listen to, many of them from the Nintendo library. From his breakout hit album Live at Grillby's to his current year of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, if there's a Nintendo track that you love, there's a strong chance that Carlos has already done a masterful cover of it. Carlos, thanks for being with us today. We are so thankful you said yes to talking to two strange nerds on the internet.
That intro makes me sound like I'm 22 times better than I actually am. That was great.
Oh, thanks. We really love your work, and we're really excited that you could be here.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. It's been a crazy ride of starting off as a kid who used to go to the library at lunch and pull MIDI files off the internet and learn how to play them, to now making video game music or covers of video game music online for over 7 years now. Holy crap.
So it seems like 7 years is a really long time to be making videos for YouTube, but you clearly are a lifelong student of music. You play a wide array of instruments and arrange all the covers yourself, so you've clearly spent a lot of time learning jazz theory. Now, you attended the Berklee School of Music in Boston. How did you get started in learning to play instruments, and when did you start making arrangements of your own?
So it all started when I was about 7 or 8, something like that, second grade of elementary school. And one of our family members had an upright piano in their house, and they wanted to get rid of it. And so my mom and dad thought, oh, we should take this piano into our house. Maybe our son, who was obsessed with toy trains at the time, would find some use in this. So this upright piano suddenly was in our house, and I remember the day that the piano movers brought it in. And then I went to the piano bench that came with the piano, and I found these method books, and I was like, oh, okay, this seems kind of fun. It's like a puzzle, so I learned how to read music. I just taught myself how to read the notes.
You really taught yourself music
Wow.
theory?
Well, not necessarily music theory. I taught myself how to read music.
Even that is very impressive.
Holy.
Well, when you're reading from the right book, it's not that bad.
Fair point.
It's really just understanding or translating this, what seemingly looks like a complex array of dots is really just an XY graph, right? With time and then pitch. That's really just it. But with more, formalities and notation. So from there, I've been playing piano since that age. I started playing clarinet in elementary school band when I was in 5th grade. From there, I moved to the baritone saxophone in 6th grade, and I played that for a few years. And then when I got to high school, my director wanted me to play tenor saxophone, which has now become my primary instrument. And since then, I started my YouTube channel in the same year I started playing tenor saxophone. So since then, I've just been, thinking, oh, this video game song would sound fun if it was a jazz style. So I arrange it and then I perform it. That's really how everything came to be.
Now, I'd imagine that being such a prolific YouTube creator probably put you ahead of the lot of the pack when it came time to apply to college. Now, when applying to such a prestigious school like Berklee, did you highlight the fact that you write jazz covers for video game music?
Yeah, that was something I definitely included in my application. I mean, there weren't too many places to put that information, and I didn't want to shove it in their faces or anything. But I remember there was some link where you could submit, like, show us some online recordings of your stuff, and I put my YouTube channel there. So, and I don't know if that actually had if that specific inclusion of the channel had any impact. But I would say for certain that all the work that was required to make the channel what it is, certainly did have an impact on just me having the requisite musical skills to be admitted to a place like that.
I feel like we live in a world now where the kind of skills of putting together something on YouTube, especially something in a capacity like you do, is really quite relevant when applying for school, like post-secondary education where you need to be creative.
I totally agree, and a lot of those positions, the emphasis is not so much on do this exactly as this formula is. It's more like, here's a problem that we don't really care how you solve, and you can do whatever you want to solve it. And those are the type of problems I love, because when there's no restriction and you have so much creativity, it's really liberating. Because if you fail at it, you only have yourself to blame. You don't have somebody else's method or somebody else's system to blame. And I really appreciate it when the circumstances are set out that way.
Oh, I love the way that you articulated that. So you're definitely a giant Nintendo nerd like we are. Although you've dabbled in a lot of game soundtracks, we actually found you through your cover of Coconut Mall on Amazon Music. And
cool.
and then we were blown away by how much of the Nintendo library that you actually covered. Your Wii Sports and Mario Galaxy covers definitely seem to fit right into the style that you play naturally. But like, what other Nintendo games really inspire you?
So probably the biggest one is Pokemon. Pokemon is the one that I got into the most as a kid. I would say it's my favorite gaming series overall by far. I started playing Pokemon Red. My mom and I got it at a thrift store when I was a kid.
Ooh.
And it was like I got it when I got my first Game Boy Advance. It was one of the purple ones, and it was on this back shelf at the thrift store. And I remember seeing that and Pokemon Red next to it, and I got really into it at that age. So Pokemon's been my main one. I mean, of course, I've gained some. I'm a Mario fan. I'm a Zelda fan. Not super like hardcore like some people are, but I have an appreciation for what Nintendo stands for and the values they instill in their games, and also the high level of quality that they bring.
Particularly in music. And you
especially
definitely
they
take
kill the
advantage-
game when it comes to music.
We talk about their music so much on this channel.
Good, because it's that good.
It is that good.
Well, as you've grown your channel and you've been consistently producing material, you've taken on some enormous projects, like the album Live at Grillby's, which many people will know you for. But last year, you did your full jazz video game medley, which has
Correct.
3 different movements to it. It's 20 minutes long. You assembled a full orchestra to record it, and that's such a different project than what you usually undertake. I mean, usually most of your videos, you play most of the instruments yourself or all of the instruments yourself. So what was this new huge undertaking like for you?
Well, I can definitely say that that project, the Jazz Video Game Medley, was one of the, if not the most significant project in terms of how it's changed my outlook on just making YouTube videos. Because for the longest time, I had it was difficult for me to trust other musicians with the stuff that I wrote, just because my thought process was kind of like, well, if I can just learn to play every instrument myself, then why do I have to worry about making parts for other people? Why can't I just learn to do it myself? And the more instruments I learned to play, the more I realized that that isn't feasible, and that there's a reason why other people put in so much time and practice into their own instrument. So the Jazz Video Game Medley really, forced me to do that. It also helped me overcome fears of organizing large groups of people and asking large groups of people to be part of something that you're putting together. Because as a musician, when I have an idea for a project, I'm pitching it to somebody. Because of how personal I am with my music.
It's such a scary concept for those of you who are not familiar with sharing your art with the world.
It is.
It is very, very fearful to get over that hurdle the first time, the third time, and then on. So I can imagine that trying to bring in a lot of people is a very different experience than just some of your best friends.
Yeah, this might be sort of a crude analogy, but it really does put you in a vulnerable place to ask that question. So if you think about the number of people that were in the Jazz Video Game Medley, think of it as like, if you're interested in somebody like romantically and you want to like ask them out, the pain of that, like maybe divide that by 10, but then multiply that divided by 10 number by the number of musicians that were, and that's
Will you please play some music for me?
I mean, it's kind of like that. You're putting yourself out there and asking for them to be part of this project that means so much to you.
Absolutely.
Will you be my Pokemon bass player? Check yes or no.
God,
Oh.
that's how I should have done it. I should have just passed out like little Pokeball sticky notes and had everybody stand up like
For the next movement.
Oh my gosh, I should have done that.
So you just keep working on bigger and bigger projects. What can you tell us about this year of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl music that has already started?
Well, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, the reason I like the game so much and the soundtrack so much is that looking back at my childhood, I think that was the game that got me interested in jazz, or the soundtrack that really introduced
ear.
jazz to me, and and perked my ear to what it was. And the more I make YouTube videos, the more I realize that the more grateful I become that I've been fortunate enough to become in a position where I can really just, cover a song that I really like and a good decent amount of people listen to it, and I can, make a living off of it, which is crazy to imagine. And I am, of course, so grateful that is what my life has become. And I want to use that opportunity to give back as much as possible. And, there are certain ways that some people do that, like through charity. Some people will do it through that, or like creating these other projects. For me, I think that the best like skills that I have to offer back to the world are music related ones, right? Because that's what I've spent the most time developing. That's what I love doing the most and have loved for so many years. And I figured that I would combine it with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, because it is a game that I am so passionate about. And I think that that passion can really come through in the music. I don't really know what it is, but there's, you can really tell when somebody's got, an extensive amount of knowledge about the source material that they're arranging. And I've met so many fans of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl over the years, and the number just keeps growing and growing. So it is my mission to present that soundtrack in the best way I possibly can, mostly for my sake, because I really I love this soundtrack to death. But also for the sake of other people and giving people who like this soundtrack the opportunity to hear it presented as such.
I think sometimes in our own endeavors, we have to be a little bit selfish and kind of play our own game a little bit. But picking music of Pokemon, I think, is a really good idea because, as we were talking about a little bit earlier with Nintendo and their ability to put music to their video games, and this music speaks to us, with Backrolls, you and I joking before this video with Carlos about how we're a little bit older. It's, I still come across rearranged versions and remixed versions of Nintendo tracks from, 20 or 30 years ago that still make me emotional today. And so the thing about you creating this Pokemon music in your own way is timeless.
So there's a whole lot of juggling that you're doing these days. On top of these weekly videos, you're a college student finishing up your final year, and you're still taking the time to perform live events. As we are recording, you just finished the live show with the 8-Bit Big Band. So Charlie Rosen was one of our very first guests, and we are such fangirls of both his and yours. So how was collaborating with that group for the live show?
Wow, I didn't know I was talking to such great fangirls here. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
God.
Please say my water bottle.
Well, I kind of gave the spiel before the show, but I guess people sort of regard me as like that guy who makes the jazz video game music arrangements on YouTube, right? And since I've become that guy, I have become exceptionally interested in anybody else who does the exact same thing. So I know pretty much every other YouTube video game music jazz artist there is. So I became aware of the 8-Bit Big Band very, very early on in the development of their channel. I was around when they launched their first video. And one of the things I first, listen for when I'm listening to a new channel is okay, what kind of chops do these guys have? Are they, how skilled are they? What new thing are they bringing to the music? And as soon as I heard this music, I was on one hand really happy, and one hand extremely mad. Who the heck is this guy? He has no right to be this good and blow all of us out, blow everybody else out of the water. But as I jest, certainly. But it is so refreshing to see somebody like Charlie, who has so many years and obviously skills that he's invested in terms of music production, music arranging, all that stuff, and combine that with a genuine passion for video game music. I had this discussion with some of the people in the band, and it's I think it's pretty easy to tell when someone is a fake video game music fan. As somebody who's lived in that world for a long time, you can tell, like, if they put out an album and their only songs are like Bob on Battlefield, Super Mario Brothers athletic theme, Final Fantasy main theme, all this stuff that's like sort of mainstream. But then I looked at his press start album, and he's got like Lonely Rolling Star from Katamari Damacy.
That is how I found him, actually. I was searching Katamari Damacy music.
Yeah, exactly. And he knows that stuff.
Well, and both of you, I think you both excel in similar veins, and one of the reasons why we are so excited to have had him as a guest and you as a guest is because both of you do really do this because you're passionate about it, and that is apparent in your playing and in his arranging. You have, and not this may sound as a strange compliment, but you have such a mournful tone sometimes in your playing that really speaks to me. There are certain tracks in particular where that just shines through, and not to say that like your cover of Gusty Garden sounds mournful, but Snake Eater was one that really stood out to me.
I know exactly what you mean, right? And I think it's important as an artist who is, especially an artist who is dealing with other people's work, maintaining that emotion, the emotional connection, right?
Yes.
Because, like I'm covering Snake Eater, right? I can't just, completely flip the mood of the song. I mean, I could, but like, what is the intended effect of that? There's so much I've thought about, how much of the original emotion of the song should you keep in? And that's a whole other debate. But with what Charlie does in his music, he definitely has, you can definitely tell he knows what he's talking about, and he knows the emotion. And okay, this is the point I was trying to make, but I totally went like a mental train circle. But I think as an artist, it's important to be authentic and be just completely yourself. That's how I've managed my channel all these years. I don't try and put on any charade. I'm as authentic to myself as I can possibly be. And I think that's just the most sustainable and honest and
sustainable is the word, and healthy. It's healthy as an artist to make the art that drives you and makes you want to create, not what if you're blessed enough to have an audience and they love your work, and that's a gift. But if they're trying to force upon you other expectations of the kind of material you should be making, proceed in that with caution, especially in the era of social media. It's wonderful that everyone has a voice, but as artists, we have to keep that true north that we know.
Yes, and that is something that, sometimes I get a little squeamish when I'm talking to people about like business kind of things, because, there to some extent business skills are necessary, because you need to, I need to have money for my my midnight bread, peanut butter, and milk snacks, right? That's very important to me, a very important part of my routine. And you need certain business skills to attain that. But it's just there's such a feeling of dissonance that I feel, not to make a musical pun or anything, but a dissonance I feel when I'm asked to do something that I don't believe in, and perhaps that's just my privilege of being an artist who can actually just cover whatever song they're really passionate about and do it. But I think I've just been super authentic, and that's how I try and treat everything, with exceptional to the point of embarrassment. Like, embarrass yourself by being as authentic as possible, and I think that's the way to go.
I think that's part of why you found so much success with your channel, though, is that people see you for who you are, right? Like, if you're covering a bunch of songs like you're talking about some of these other people who are just kind of picking the basics from the video game catalog, it comes across as like almost disingenuous. Oh, you're doing this because you just want the views. Whereas you do this.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you do this because you love it.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I decided to do the whole Year of Sinnoh thing, right? Because I think, if anything, that proves that I'm not somebody who will just, chill out and cover whatever the next most popular main theme of a Nintendo game is, right? It shows that, I care so much about this soundtrack for the sheer reason of, just personal affiliation and genuine love for the music, that I'm willing to sacrifice, viral videos and sacrifice, increased view counts. And I don't think about that stuff anymore. I just think about, what is my true north, and how can I best contribute my skills to the rest of the world.
Love that. It's pretty apparent that you keep a packed schedule. We kind of wanted to ask, do you have time?
You should see my Google Calendar.
Do you have time these days for video games? Are you going to be able to carve out some time for yourself for Sword and Shield?
I would like to. I'd like to play Sword and Shield. To be honest, I moved back in this apartment I'm in to go to college at the beginning of September, and I see my Nintendo Switch dock sitting here on my desk, and it's still not set up properly. So unfortunately, I haven't had a whole lot of time recently to play games. Usually I enter like a phase of gaming whenever I do a lot of traveling, because traveling means a plane ride, and a plane ride is like the perfect time for me to play
I
games.
can't answer emails, so I
Free
must
time.
game.
Yeah. Yeah. I do wish I had more time to play games, and I know that the solution to that problem is to make more time to play games.
Well, it's coming. You're graduating soon. You will have time as we are
Well,
older
I
seasons.
don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Well-
Maybe I'll just make more videos on YouTube.
Very true, and that's not a bad problem to have. Like,
No.
I'm so busy creating all these things that I don't have time to game.
Well, I mean, I guess it goes to show. I mean, for a lot of people, video games are a nice stress reliever or escape from reality. And for me, it's music. Like, creating these arrangements and working on music sort of checks all those boxes for me, and I don't feel a need to pursue things besides that. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to go to music school where music is around me all the time. There's new types of music everywhere. There's people to play with everywhere, and I know a lot of people who I can call up and say, "Hey, you want to start a Pokemon Diamond and Pearl jazz fusion band? Good, let's do it. Rehearsal on Saturday." Like that's legitimately a thing I've said in the past, and it works, which is so cool. So I guess in short, I don't play a lot of games right now. But I would like to.
But it's good and it's healthy to be collaborating at that rate, and our younger listeners, if you are in school, it's important to try and maintain that as best you can when you reach adult life, because adult responsibilities will get in the way of creation sometimes, but carving out the time for the things that bring you joy is also important.
And Carlos, you got two people across the mic right now who are very happy that you choose to spend your time making all this jazz music.
Absolutely.
I am happy that you are happy. You are half of the reason why I do this.
Oh, we're
The
not
other half-
happy.
Not the two of
The other half
us.
is myself. If it was half, then I'd have an audience of approximately 4 people.
Then you'd have an audience of our size.
Yeah.
Keep at it.
Well, as always, we like to ask, who are the artists that inspire you? Now, not just in jazz music or video games, but beyond that.
I'll go with my music answers for the greatest musicians, or my greatest influences ever. My favorite saxophone player is Michael Brecker. He's a phenomenal tenor saxophone player. He's one of the, I would call the holy trinity of jazz saxophone players, which are Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, and Michael Brecker. I think the 3 of them represent, in general, the maximum amount of achievement on the instrument as possible. Other musicians I like, basically everybody in the band Snarky Puppy. Snarky Puppy is one of my favorite bands of all time, and each member there has their own story, and most of them have their own individual musical projects, which are also really good. Snarky Puppy is the ensemble that I've modeled my Pokemon Diamond and Pearl live stuff afterwards. I've created an ensemble that's kind of like that, and I'm striving to create that kind of style with my music. Maybe I'll go for game composers. Probably my favorite game composer of all time. Well, I mean, I have to say, Goichi no Sei, Junichi Masuda, Hitomi Sato from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl are all, they're up there in the star realm for me. Of course, Koji Kondo, Kazumi Totaka, those guys are wonderful. We wouldn't have so much of the game music canon that we have today without them.
No.
And I guess other general life role models. One of my longtime friends on YouTube, his name is Chugga Conroy. He's a Let's Player on YouTube, and he was the first YouTuber that I ever remember watching, really. And in recent years, I've been fortunate enough to get to know him better and participate in some charity events with him. But the thing I like most about him is his philosophy of, making focusing on detail and making things specifically because you care about them, not because somebody else asked you to do that, right? And that philosophy is something I've just continued to embrace the more and more I work on my channel. And I really have his real name is Emil. I really have Emil to thank for instilling the seed of that mentality in me, like when I was in middle school, when I discovered his Let's Play video of The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, and I've been a longtime fan since then.
So I'm thinking we have time for about one more question, and this one is right out of left field. Carlos, if you were a Pokemon gym leader, what type of Pokemon would you use?
Water.
Oh, that was quick.
That was a lightning.
And we didn't tell you.
What do you think I think about?
That is such a fair point. We did not prep him at all for that question. So if anyone else has to think on it for a while,
I'll go
Pokemon
one step
fan.
further. Empoleon.
Oh, he has his 6.
Empoleon, Omastar, Milotic, Greninja. That's 4 water types I would say definitely yes. I don't have 2 others in mind right now.
The fact that you had 4 is already, that blows my mind.
Yeah, we did.
I'm a big Pokemon fan.
Truth be told, I have also pondered this silently to myself once in a while. What kind of gym leader would I be, and what Pokemon would I choose? But I like how fast you answered.
The next BuzzFeed quiz, I'm sure I'll see it in about 15 minutes after this interview. What kind of gym leader will you be? And what does it say about your personality?
Well, Carlos, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate the time you took with us.
Thank you so much for having me and listening to my strange answers to your not-so-strange questions.
Now, to listen to Carlos's extensive library, search for Insaneintherain on YouTube or wherever you usually listen to music. You'll be sure to find him, and we'll include some links in the description below as well. As always, we hope you leave this video ready to pick up a Pro Controller, a paintbrush, or a pen. I'm Backrolls.
And I'm Mac Fraser, and this has been the Nintendo Nerds.